Howdy gang, it's Chris Angel coming at you with another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Today we're talking about the season of disconnect. Now this is a follow-up to my post this morning. I tried something new. I was sharing something just in life and not always business and marketing. And the post this morning, if you saw it, was about marriage and how a lot of times in marriage, marriage doesn't always line up, right? There are different seasons of marriage. There are seasons where everything's great and honky-dory, and then there are seasons of marriage where things are confusing. Things don't feel like they should, not like you want them to. And what I realized is that that's not just unique, right, to marriage. That actually is true in business. There are some seasons in business where things feel like all cylinders are firing, and then there are some seasons in business where everything feels weird. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like you want it to. So I wanted to unpack some of the problems or the breakdowns that we experience inside of business and then give you a possibility, some type of alternative reality that you could have inside of your work. And then we'll follow it up as always now with our audio principles that I'll link up in the comments when we're done here, right? The principles of how do we get from what's broken to what's possible, okay? So let me walk you through this. The first breakdown that I really see is that we end up in this weird season, right? And when we get into weird season, we question everything. Again, this can happen in marriage, right? When something gets weird, it's out of alignment, we're like, man, all things are in question. Same thing in business. You get into a weird season professionally, and maybe work doesn't feel like it used to. Maybe you're not inspired by your work anymore. Maybe you don't feel like you're using your gifts to the degree you could, and you don't even know what that would be. Also, in this weird season, right? Questioning everything gets scary, right? Because now it's like if you question it, that means you have to look for something new. And that's scary to consider something new. So you can see how this starts to, by the way, you can see how this spills into other areas of your life now, right? Can you imagine the interesting conversations you're having with your spouse or significant other when you start to question everything in your professional life? How does that conversation go? I know how it goes because I've had many of those, right? And those are super awkward and uncomfortable, okay? So from there, right, what you can see that when you start to question everything, what happens is you start to feel dissonant, right? When things are uneasy, or when you start to question everything, you start to feel dissonant about what you're doing. Driving to work every day, showing up and talking to the same people doesn't feel the same, right? And it's all because of this weird season. Now, from that weird season, you move into this place where you start to search for not that weird feeling, right? I don't mean search for answers, because it's not even like that. It's just we start to veer off course in hopes of not feeling this way. It may look like we're looking for answers, but that's not actually what's happening. What's actually happening is a big misdirect or redirect or distraction campaign, right? To not feel this uneasiness from this season. Okay. And then from there, what'll happen is inevitably you'll stay stuck. You'll stay stuck in this weird season, or you'll come out of it, but then you'll come back right back into it, or some other weird season, and you'll go through the same pattern. You'll repeat the same pattern, right? Because here's why. Because you're avoiding the scary, right, and hard work of telling the truth. You're avoiding the scary and hard work of telling the truth about what isn't working. Can you imagine, like, let's just put this back into a marriage context for a minute. It's very hard and scary to go do the work of getting honest about what isn't working in marriage. Because what happens when you find the truth? What happens when you start to define that? Well, it implies that you're going to have a conversation about it. And that's super uncomfortable. Have you guys ever had those types of honest conversations in marriage about what isn't working? Those are doozies, right? Those are doozies of a conversation. Well, the same thing is true in business. If you start to actually look at what isn't working and you get very honest about that, it implies that you may have to make some changes. And making changes, the idea, especially depending on your age, but like, look, I'm 43 now. When I was younger, it didn't seem so hard to just, okay, we'll just try something new. But now at 43, the idea of building something new feels like a lot of work. So It's easy to be scared of what you might find as you explore the dark shadows of what isn't really working for you. And so we don't do it. We stay stuck because we don't want to go look at that. But the problem with that is that the problem with not looking at it is you're going to repeat the process. So you might find some way out of it now, some other distraction that did pull your attention away from it, from the weird season. But you're going to find yourself back in it if you can't get comfortable with the truth of things, right? But here's the good news. You are not bound. You are not bound to that destiny. You have other options. And I want to give you a pathway out. I want to give you an alternative, right? Rather than feeling weird and stuck, right? You could actually feel like you could handle any season, no matter what it feels like. You could handle it, right? And you would handle it in a way that felt patient and wise, right? Not frantic and uneasy, but you would actually feel patient and wise with that season through all of it. And from that, you would see that you could start to feel on point, right? No matter what the season is, you could still feel on point with your life goals, your business goals, where you are headed, and it wouldn't actually be an issue in this space of feeling patient and wise. And then from there, you could start to actually not only trust the process, right? Even if it's a weird season, you could trust the process and then lean into the feelings that you're actually having. So when you're having those disconnected seasons in business or in marriage, whatever, you could actually lean into the discomfort and start to look at the feelings, right? Guys, that is super evolved to be able to do that. And from there, and it changes the way that you interact with the world, right? Like your business can continue to grow no matter the season because you're actually able to stay at peace with everything that's happening. Now, from there, you actually can move into the gift that the universe has for you, right? Like when you lean into it and ask the question about why you're having these feelings, you can actually start to uncover the gifts that the universe has for you by looking honestly, right, at what isn't working. And then, which then leaves you empowered to create the life you want. Like that's ultimately, gang, that's it. Like we're all going to feel seasons of disconnect. We're all going to have experiences that feel dissonant. But it's those that can stay patient and wise in the process, lean into the feelings and get really honest about what's not working so that they can have power to produce the result no matter the season. I see this all the time where people get sidetracked by the uneasiness of the weird season they're in, and then they don't produce the result they know they're capable of, and then they repeat the process over and over and over again. I see this all the time when people come to me in coaching. And they come to me from this place of like, man, I just really need to fix something. But they're not willing to look at or be comfortable with leaning into the discomfort of their feelings and then getting very honest about what it is they really want. So this is setting up the continuation of this. I'm gonna paste in the comments below a link to 4 principles that can move you out of being subject to or being a victim of weird seasons or seasons of disconnect. And the principles move you into a place of power so that you can actually trust the process and produce the result you're trying to produce no matter the season. So I'm going to link that up below in the comments. And for now, this is it for me. Signing off. Thanks for joining me today for an episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Until tomorrow when we go live again for another episode, have a great night and lean into those feelings.